Hey everybody, welcome back to our channel. We are in the kitchen today because I am going to be working on some things to go kind of along with a freezer meal that we're having for dinner tonight. So if you saw, we did so many weeks worth of freezer meals to get prepared before our baby was born. And we are still working through those, and those have been an amazing blessing. I cannot tell you enough how thankful I am that we did that. Tonight we are going to have carnitas, which are pork tacos, but I'm feeling pretty good today. So I'm gonna make some stuff to go along with that, and I am gonna show you guys exactly what that is. So the first thing that we are going to make is going to be salsa verde, and then we are going to make a dessert, a flan, to go along with it. So I actually am super excited about this recipe, partially because we have some tomatillos planted. But for this recipe today, we don't have any from our garden just yet, but we do have a bunch of cilantro, so I'm gonna grab some of that. So I am looking for about half a cup right now of cilantro. The more you pick cilantro, the more it grows back too, so I like to use it as much as I can. All right, we're gonna take this back inside and we're gonna get started on making our salsa verde to go with our carnitas for dinner tonight. All right, so we're gonna talk a little bit about what the salsa is made out of. So the main ingredient in the salsa are tomatillos. So tomatillos are not tomatoes. They are closer to a pepper than they are to a tomato. They're like citrusy, a little acidic, a little tart. You probably would not want to just bite into this. It does have like kind of a waxy feel underneath this husk. So you're always gonna wanna get tomatillos that are in a husk, otherwise it might just be a green tomato. But we are going to pull the husk off. I am not gonna cut into this unless I see like a bad spot on it or something, but I am going to give these a good rinse, and then I'm gonna put them on a cookie sheet and roast them in the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes at 450, 425 degrees until they start to kind of brown and they're gonna cook through. So that's gonna give it like a roasted flavor. And since I'm doing that with my tomatillos, I'm gonna go ahead and do that with my peppers too. So you can make this salsa with serrano, you can make it with jalapeno. I wouldn't leave the pepper out because you do want some spice. We are a moderate spice level when it comes to our family. Some like it more than others. I can handle it a lot less than my son, who very much enjoys the spice. So we are going for serranos today. I am growing these as well in our garden, but we don't have any ready to be picked yet. So I am going to cut the top off of this and give this a roast alongside of my tomatillos. All right, so we have these all rinsed off. The texture is like super waxy and weird on the outside. And then I'm just gonna roast one serrano with it. But I do wanna go ahead and cut that top off. Now, if you wanted to be less spicy, you could do like a jalapeno, half of a jalapeno. You could cut the seeds and the veins out. That is gonna save you some heat on that. But why would you want to? Because it's delicious with the heat. So I'm gonna stick this in a 425 degree oven, and I'm gonna set my timer for about 15 minutes, and I'm gonna start checking it after 15 minutes. The pepper will probably brown up first, but that's okay. You just want like a nice golden brown top on these to know that they are cooked through. Our tomatillos and serrano are almost finished roasting. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of get everything else put together. So I'm gonna start off with half of an onion. If you're canning this, you do have to be a little bit careful with making sure that you're sticking close to the recipe, because it is a recipe that has been tested to make sure that it is safe to can. But I'm not gonna can this one this time. So I'm just gonna kind of quarter these up just to give my blender a head start. I'm gonna throw in stems and all of that cilantro that I just got from the garden. And then I'm gonna add a teaspoon and a half of salt and about 2 cloves of garlic. So I like to use this minced garlic, just makes my life a little easier. So I'm just gonna add about 2 cloves worth. To that, I want to add some lime juice. So again, if you are canning, the safest thing to do, you can always be a rogue canner. Sometimes I am if I'm honest. But if you are canning this, the safest thing to do is to use jarred lime juice because the acidity level is always going to be the same. But again, since I'm not canning it, and honestly, even if I were, I would just still use real limes. I just think it tastes better. I know exactly what's in it. It's not just water and citric acid, it's actual lime. But I want a good tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of lime juice. So I'm gonna juice up 2 to 3 limes until I get about that much. Okay, so I'm gonna pour this in. That's 2 limes. If you have less juicy limes, you might need 3. Now I'm gonna pull out my tomatillos and peppers because those are finished roasting. Okay, tomatillos are done. You can see that they have like released a lot of juice. They've browned up. Our serrano is nice and roasted up too. So I'm gonna take all of this and I'm gonna pour this juice in as well and stick it all in my blender. All right, get all that good flavor in there. Now I'm just going to go blend this up, and that is it. That's literally all it takes. This is a pretty quick salsa to come together. All right, we are steamy and done. It has a very bright citrusy smell. It's gonna be spicy and delicious. It's still warm, obviously, but this is it. So I'm gonna stick this in my refrigerator and cool it down, and we're gonna have this with our pork tacos for dinner tonight. So the first part, and honestly probably the most difficult part of the flan, is going to be the caramel sauce stuff, but it's 2 ingredients. So it is a cup of sugar and about 1/2 cup, I'm actually not even gonna measure the water, about 1/2 cup of water. And then we're gonna turn that on to a medium heat, and we're gonna melt that sugar down and caramelize it. And it is going to make like a rich sauce that is going to ultimately be on the top of our flan. So I have my water and my sugar in my pot. And what's gonna happen is the sugar is going to melt in that water. I'm just gonna give it a little bit of a stir right now, but then after that, I'm actually not gonna stir it again. But that water is going to help melt that sugar down without burning it. And then that water is going to evaporate off. So we are going to just leave this on the burner just like this and let that happen because that's where the flavor is gonna come from for that sauce. So if you've never had flan before, it is like a caramel sauce, kind of a thin caramel sauce on top of like a cheesecakey custard kind of pudding dessert. You'll see what it looks like in the end. It's delicious. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like a creme brulee. It has kind of that flavor to it. It's vanilla, kind of an eggy dessert. It's super good. And it seems like it's gonna be pretty difficult to make, but it's not. So I have the caramel sauce going, and then I am going to just use my blender. You can do this in a food processor too, to make the actual like custardy part. So I'm gonna start off with 1 brick of cream cheese. I think most traditional flan does not have cream cheese in it, but we really like cream cheese and we really like cheesecake. So to that, we're gonna add 2 different kinds of milk. So we have sweetened condensed milk, which this stuff is gonna add the sweetness to it. I need my tiny spatula for this one. It's gonna add the sweetness to it, which is why we're not gonna add any more sugar to this, because this stuff is very, very sweet. So we're just gonna add that right in. This stuff is so sticky too. It's delicious. Okay, and then to that, I'm gonna add a can of evaporated milk as well. So far we're at 3 ingredients. 4, I guess, if you count the sugar. But for the actual custard part, we're at 3 ingredients. And then I'm gonna add some vanilla. Probably about a 1.5 to 2 teaspoons. Not the ideal container for vanilla, but it works. Okay, I'm gonna take this to my blender and I'm gonna blend this up because I'm gonna get that cream cheese really blended up nicely in with the other stuff before I add the eggs in. Okay, I have it all blended up, and I will say I have the caramel stuff going at the same time, and I am keeping a really close eye on it. It is bubbling, I can hear it, but it is not caramelized yet, so I'm not gonna be super concerned about that just yet. So I'm gonna finish this up so that when that's done, this will be ready to go too. So I'm going to add to this 5 eggs. Now this is one of the recipes that I really like to do in the springtime right now when we have a lot of eggs. Okay, so now I have all my eggs in. I'm gonna take this back to my blender. I'm gonna blend this up real nice, and then it's gonna be ready for whenever our caramel sauce is done. So our caramel sauce is boiling away. I can tell that all of the water has evaporated out of it because you can see that there is a knot of, well, you probably can't because it's on camera, but I can see that there is no steam coming up. Once the steam has stopped coming up, then you're gonna see that your sugar is going to start caramelizing. So I have this in a pan that is white on the bottom because I like to be able to see it, but I also have pure cane sugar in here, like an organic cane sugar, which is automatically darker than a white sugar. So because of that, it can be kind of difficult to tell when you've reached that amber color. So you do not want to take it off before it's dark enough, or you're not going to have enough flavor, and you don't want to take it off before it's too dark, or else it's going to taste burnt, and you don't want that. So just finding that perfect middle ground is going to be key. So I'm going to show you guys exactly what I do to make sure that I get that every time. So if you can see right now, all of our bubbles have sort of like an off-white, kind of a cream looking color to them. When those bubbles start being the amber color, and you'll be able to see that whether you have a black bottom pan, a stainless steel pan, or a white pan like I have, when those bubbles start to be amber colored, that's when you want to pull it. You should be able to start to smell like a caramel flavor in that before that, but you don't want to pull it until those bubbles start to be that darker amber color, or else it's not going to be dark enough and it's not going to taste like caramel when you're completely finished. It's just going to add like a really, really, really sweet sugar layer to your flan, and that's not what we're looking for here. Okay, so you can see that the bubbles have changed to like a dark amber color, so we are done with this part. Okay, so once we have this, you want to move pretty quickly with this. I have a pan. I have not sprayed this or buttered this or anything because I don't want that layer on there, but we are going to pour our nice dark caramel right in the bottom of our pan. Be really careful. This stuff is molten hot. And I'm just going to swirl it around, make sure I'm getting the whole bottom of that pan, that dish, completely covered with that caramel. And you will be so surprised how quickly this is going to set. Once we have it covered, we're gonna let it sit for about 2 minutes, and then we'll pour the custard in. So our caramel has set. It is super, super hot, so you do not wanna touch the bottom of this pan. In fact, I have a pot holder here because this is so hot. Molten sugar is a lot hot, even though it's bubbling like boiling water, it is so much hotter than boiling water. So you want to be extremely cautious. This is probably not something that you want like kids really helping with, at least this part. Just that part, the rest of it's probably fine. But you definitely don't want anybody that is going to stick their hands in it, because I can, even putting my hand right here, it is a very, very hot. So you want to be super cautious about that. So I have my custard, and this is pretty much set. So I am just going to pour this right in. Again, not greased at all. This is very, very liquid, but those eggs are going to firm that up, and it is going to completely change the texture, just like cheesecake when you cook it. So I'm going to stick this in a 350-degree oven, but I'm actually going to stick it in a water bath. So I have like a sheet pan, a cookie tray that has like the lips on the side. I'm gonna put this in the middle of that, and then very, very carefully, I'm gonna pour water into the sheet pan. That is going to help this cook a lot more evenly. It's not going to burn on the bottom, and it is going to make sure that you end up with a perfect flan every time. It's a step that I wouldn't suggest skipping. It definitely doesn't take that much more effort to do, and I think that it definitely makes a huge difference in the end. We're gonna cook that for an hour and a half. You do not want to open your oven for that hour and a half. You want that to be able to cook at a consistent temperature. So an hour and a half, and then we'll check it and see how it looks after that. All right, so we finished baking it. I baked it at 350 for about an hour and 35 minutes, something like that. When I took it out, it still had a little bit of a jiggle to it, but you can see this thing is solid now. So what I am going to do, because if I try to flip this out right now, nothing's gonna happen. I am actually going to get some water boiling and pour it in a sheet pan, just enough to kind of cover the bottom. I want to kind of melt some of that caramel sauce that is on the bottom, and then I'm going to take a knife and run it around the edge, and then we will flip it out on our pretty little dish here, and it is going to be a super, super yummy dessert to go with our carnitas tonight. So my water is boiling. I don't want to fill this up because I don't want it to like overflow when I put my pan in there. I just want enough so that it's gonna kind of heat the bottom of that up. All right, let's set that down in there. I'll let that sit for a second. And while that's sitting and kind of loosening up that caramel on the bottom, kind of melting it a little bit, I'm gonna take my knife and run it around the edge. I did keep this, I let it come to room temperature, and then I put it in the refrigerator for a few hours to make sure and firm that up. If you tried to do this as soon as you got it out of the oven, it would be a massive mess. So you want to make sure that this is fully chilled before you try to do this. Okay. All right, it's all the way around. I can see some of that caramel stuff coming out, so we're gonna flip that out now. So in an effort to do this without making a mess, I'm gonna take my dish and put it on top of my pan. And then we're just gonna do a real quick 1, 2, 3. This part always makes me so nervous. Ooh, okay. Oh, okay. 1, 2, 3. I didn't do it. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Woo! And out it came. Made a little bit of a mess, but that's all right. So I'm just gonna lift this off. Well, I missed the center. You get it. Let's see if we can push that back in there and make it a little prettier here. No, we cannot. That's all right. Just gonna clean that up. But that is our flan. We have our caramel sauce. It's delicious. Oh, that's good. And our custard. And that is gonna be a really, really delicious dessert to go with our tacos for dinner. That is it for today, guys. We are definitely going to enjoy this stuff with our dinner tonight. I'm so thankful that we have some freezer meals prepared. It's gonna make cooking tonight a breeze, and definitely adding some freshly made stuff to it is gonna be really nice. Again, if you guys are interested in seeing the video where I make the carnita meat, I will link that down below. Otherwise, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys.